Overture album in which she sings the Liebestod, Tannhäuser with Domingo, the Donizetti Requiem, Attila with Sam Raimi, Die Feen by Wagner, Fierabras by Schubert, Der Zwerg by Zemlinsky, Jesonda, that opera spelled Jessonda, I think, by Spohr, Die Zauberflöte, in which she sings the Queen of the Night, Guillaume Tell with Mutians and some others, including one where she sings a duet from Kiss Me Kate with Hermann Prey. She will star on 10 more albums due out the coming year. Vespri Siciliani with Muti, live from La Scala, Electra with Martin, Don Giovanni with Muti, Mozart arias, Schubert Lieder, Lucia di Lammermoor, Count Dorfmann in a new edition, where Giulietta, I understand, is a coloratura, Goethe-Dämmerung with Levine, and Lohengrin, which will also appear as a video disc. CHERYL STUDER recently subjugated London, Chicago, San Francisco, Tokyo, Vienna, Berlin, Munich, Hamburg, Salzburg, and Bayreuth, and sang the opening night at La Scala last year and the year before in Vespri and Guillaume Tell. I can think of no one else who has sung Wagner in Bayreuth, Mozart in Salzburg, Verdi at La Scala, and Strauss in Munich, not to mention Rossini in Pesaro, which he is scheduled to do. Indeed, if you can think of such a singer, please let me know. It'll be one for the books. In 1990 and 1991, Met audiences will hear her as Donna Anna, Marguerite, Elettra in Idomeneo, and Violetta. Try not to hold against her that Donald Hanahan gave her a good review for Donna Anna in this morning's Times. Note that Hanahan was careful to mention non mi dir in the context of discussion of Donna Anna. In a Don Giovanni review last season, he confused the parts of Elvira and Anna, scrambling who sings what, and aroused a chorus of derision. In recent months, CHERYL Studer's photo has graced the covers of Bühne, Das Opernglas, Orpheus, and Opera News. She is, in short, emerging as the preeminent soprano of the 90s. We're privileged to have her. CHERYL Studer was born in Midland, Michigan, but in this country, although she received financial help from Leonard Bernstein, no opera company would hire her. She couldn't even get into an apprentice program. Her career came about as the result of her struggles and her parents' financial sacrifices. CHERYL Studer, who rejected you and why?
I auditioned, this would be in the year of 1978-79, before I went to Europe. I auditioned for the New Jersey Opera, for the New York City Opera, for the Dallas Opera, for the Houston Opera, in St. Louis, for the Lake George apprenticeship program, which I had hoped to get into, which I also was not accepted. And in 78, I had won third place at the Metropolitan Auditions here in New York, and in 79 also won the G.B. Dealey Awards, which I'm not sure if you're aware of, Stefan, but they take place in Dallas. And this award includes a monetary prize and supposedly a featured role with the Dallas Civic Opera, which in my case never did come to be. Maybe they'll ask me in a few years to come back and sing this featured role, The Priestess in Aida or something, I'm not sure. But this role never came to be, unfortunately. Then I went to Europe. So I did try in the United States to get some kind of work and was turned down everywhere, although in Houston they said I'm very promising. It is an unfortunate situation. I think my biggest mistake back then was that I was maybe aiming too low. I think maybe if I had tried in a place such as Chicago, or maybe even at the Met, to get an engagement, that it might have been easier for me. Looking back in it, I think it was probably better this way to start in Europe.
Did you get enough feedback to indicate what was at issue? Was it simply that they were obtuse?
In Dallas, they mentioned to me that I was a little bit overweight. At the New York City Opera, they said that it was wonderful, but they weren't sure exactly what repertoire I should sing. And in Lake George, they didn't even pay any attention to me at all. I think I even only sang one aria. I'd like to say at all of these auditions, as a matter of fact, I did not feel that I gave a bad performance. I gave an average to good performance. For example, when I sang in New Jersey, I sang the Anon Cridea and the Anon Giunge from La Sonnambula, and I sang it very well. And one of the jurists was very excited, an elderly man, and in spite of that, I was not accepted.
Great singers come in two varieties. Some, such as Adelina Patti, were hailed, well, practically at birth as the greatest as among the great singers of the era. Others had to claw their way to the top and arrived there only after perseverance and tenacity, enabling them to overcome rejection after rejection. Most singers who changed singing in some way, who introduced something new, fall into that category. Rubini and Dupré among them. What role did your family play?
Oh, my family was very supportive. I was like an only child, although my brother and sister, I do have a brother and sister, they were 14 and 15 years older than myself, so I was actually a mistake, and had a very happy childhood, and was very much pampered at home from all sides, from my parents' sides, from my brothers and sisters' side. And I think this really was very inducive to the fact that I was always sort of on the spotlight, and I was very much a ham at home. I would get in front of the mirror and make faces and dance around and this kind of thing, which sounds rather silly now, but I think it actually did build up or did help me get rid of a fear of being in front of audiences, and help develop also my artistic personality. And I think that this kind of healthy home situation where everyone was so supportive and did enjoy my making music. I also played piano, of course. I also took ballet. I also played viola. And all of these activities were accepted with overwhelming response. Everyone was very excited about me and loved me. And I think this was very, very healthy.
How did you finally get hired?
Oh, how did I get hired? I started, as I said, in '79. I went to Europe, and since I didn't have any luck getting an engagement as a young opera singer, I decided to continue with some lead activities. And I had read in an article in some magazine about a lead course outside of Vienna for English-speaking students, and I said, well, this is for me. So I wrote to this school, and they took me, and was there for the summer. And I met at this course a lot of great artists such as Irmgard Seyfried, Hans Hotter, Jörg Demus, etc., Brigitte Fassbender, Kim Borg. And two of these people, namely Hans Hotter and Irmgard Seyfried, suggested to me that I should stay in Europe and should stop singing only lieder, but should really get involved in opera. And I said, well, I would love to, but no one will take me. They said, well, in Europe you won't have the problem. So I decided to continue studies with Hans Hotter. And this was more actually than technique. This was more of interpretation courses in lead and oratorio. And I studied with him in Vienna. And it was he who talked to the Munich State Opera and said, I have a student, I would like her to audition for you. And I auditioned to the Munich State Opera, and this is where I began as a beginner. I had a contract as a beginner, not in the studio program, at the Munich State Opera in Bavaria.
At least until that point, your parents, I gather, had been pouring money into your efforts to make a career.
They did put a lot of money into my career. If you ignore all of the private schooling and all of the private lessons, think of the amount of clothes I would also need for all of these auditions I was doing, which didn't, amount to anything. I mean, this is tremendous amount of money was being put out. I think since I've been working, I think I've earned as much as my parents put into me at this point. But it took 10 years.
May I ask what it costs to launch a singer?
Oh, I think we figured out that it was somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000.
What was it like for you in the German provinces, or for that matter, in Berlin?
Yes. Well, as I said, I started in Munich. And from Munich, I have to go back just a couple of steps. In Munich, I was being pushed by the powers to be into a repertoire which I thought myself at that age was very premature. They suggested, even during my first season, that I should sing Elettra and Idomeneo, eventually Salome and the Empress and the Frauenschatten. And I didn't know all of these operas at the time, but I was aware that they were more in a dramatic direction that I thought I should be singing. I'd like to go back one more step and say that when I auditioned in Munich, I auditioned with Caro Nome, Ach ich fühl's from Die Zauberflöte, Pamina's aria, and Marguerite's Jewel song. So, I was of the opinion I should be doing coloratura lyric repertoire. And the first roles I sang were small but difficult Wagner so-called compromario roles, such as Helmwege, one of the Walküres, the third Norn, which is not an easy part, but a smaller part. These kind of Wagner and Strauss things. And it took me a while to also have my own opinion of what I thought I should be doing. I assumed everyone else should know better, such experienced people as the directors of such a great theater as the Bavarian State Opera. I assumed they should know better than someone at my age who had no experience at all. It proved not to be true. Anyway, I decided to leave Munich on my own accord. I had been given a contract to stay in Munich, and I turned this contract down and said I would like to go into a smaller house to get more experience. Up to that time, I had not had any professional experience before Munich, and I felt that to do roles of this immense capacity, I felt I really needed to have some experience. So I thought I should go to a smaller house and sing a larger amount of major roles. And so my idea, I believe, was actually correct. Only the problem is that I went to a province house where everything was sung in German, and where the only role that I really wanted to do at that time was Desdemona. And everything else which I suggested that I would like to do. For example, I desperately wanted to do Constanze in the Abduction from the Seraglio from Mozart. And I also wanted to do Traviata. These roles were not given to me at this house in Darmstadt. And I was given instead things like Kati Kabanova from Janacek and Tatiana from Eugen Onegin. And I sang in the first season over 90 performances in the year. Chrysotomies I sang in Electra in the second season. These dramatic things I could have also done in Munich, and I would have gotten more out of it probably if I'd done it in Munich. So, as I said, the thought behind going to the province was correct. But in the end run, it was actually a mistake because they were using me more than I was able to use them. And that should not be. I think this is one of the basic problems in the province, in Europe, especially in Germany, is that the singers do not themselves have the opportunity to do things that they think they should do. They are there to fill places that the house needs them for. And I think the using should be more on the singer side than on the house's side, ideally.
How did you avoid burnout over singing destruction?
This is something that I always say. I really just did survive. As I said, I sang over 90 performances the first season. At the end of that season, I was in very poor vocal shape. I have to admit it. And I took time by myself and got myself back together again. I did a lot of Mozart and a lot of, for example, Sonnambula, things that I'd always done my whole life that I knew I always sang well. Care Selve, for example, from Handel, things that I'd worked on with my first teacher and that I knew how to sing. So I didn't, I was trying to avoid new things where you can always get little mistakes in there. Going back to old things where I knew exactly what my teacher said at what point, where my problem spots were, and really just got myself back into shape again at the end of that season.
Who was that first teacher?
Her name was Gwendolyn Pike, and she herself was a mezzo. She was in Midland, Michigan, and she took me on when I was 12 years old.
Now, The conventional wisdom is that singers should start with lyric roles and undertake dramatic ones later, if at all. Yet you made your big splash as a Wagnerian, but are now turning to Lucia. How did you finally bring that about?
Well, I finally, as I mentioned it before, decided that everyone else does not know better necessarily than I do myself. And especially, I came to this conclusion, especially when one conductor was saying something else and the other conductor was saying something else. I mean, if they are fighting between them, then who am I supposed to believe? So I decided I should start thinking on my own. And I have to be very honest, Ewald really supported me in this because although he's very much a Wagner fan, he really convinced me that I should do what I feel is right for me and not what everyone else thinks is right. If it be a critic or a director or an artistic director of an opera house or a conductor, that I should do what is right for me. And so I started saying no to these things. I mean, I had offers to do Senta, my God, all over the place. And, when Sentas came up, I said, this is just going, the next thing that's coming is going to be Isolde. And, it's just too early. If I ever do it, it's obviously too early. And I said no, and I started doing some concerts and things and would pull out my old sonambulas and, some other things. And I just sort of forced myself upon people with this other repertoire.
You say that you were in bad vocal shape, yet you were flooded with offers to do important roles. How do you reconcile that?
Well, actually, it was a period of about 2 months where I felt that I was in poor vocal shape. That was at the end of the season 1983, and I remembered I had an audition for, I believe, what was that? It was either a house in Canada or maybe San Francisco Opera. It was some house which I've forgotten since then. And I tried to sing, or I did sing, the Pamina aria at that time. I was still trying to get into lyric repertoire, back to the lyric repertoire. And I was in such poor vocal shape that my agent at that time said, well, you'll have to forgive her, but she's been singing so much this season that the voice is a little bit shattered. So, I mean, he had to excuse my audition. And that's when I really thought about myself, I have to do something about the situation. It took me about 2 months.
Is it reasonable to conclude that in general, although you may not have been realizing certain possibilities, although you may not have been singing what you wanted to sing, you were nevertheless satisfying the needs of a great many people, impresarios in particular?
Oh, I think that's true, definitely. I mean, the fact that my voice was at the time when it was not in such great shape, was getting a much thicker middle voice, and the top was sort of going away, and it was getting a little bit airy. This is wonderful if you do, German roles. This is just what they want.
Germans speak of voices as having Grenzen, 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 borders. Tell us.
Actually, limits. Can I correct you
okay,
just from actually
yes,
limits
please.
is what it means. Yes, having limitations.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Tell us, if you would, about yours. What, for example, is your highest note?
I usually, if I'm just vocalizing without any particular role in mind, I usually will vocalize up to a G above high C and down to about an F below middle C. Now, if I'm doing something that's a little bit higher or lower, I adjust accordingly. If I'm doing something that's a little bit lower, I'll vocalize down to even a D below middle C, which is almost an octave then, And I also will then leave out a little bit of the top notes. I do a lot of adjusting. I don't think that it's necessary to vocalize if I'm working on a part that's, for example, that's low. I don't think it's necessary to use the whole range, because I'm not using it, for example, as Elisabeth in Tannhäuser, and I need to have a little bit more middle voice. And so I think it's healthier to get a lot of the to keep the overtones, but to try to get a little bit more meat in the middle of the voice.
Is this range inborn or acquired?
I always had a lot of high notes as a young person. I really was, I had a very high voice. Although I should explain something, I went through sort of a voice change at the age of 17, something like this, 17 to 18. And people thought all of a sudden, I'd been a coloratura my whole life, and everyone thought, oh, she's going to turn into a mezzo now. And this was due partially to the kind of technique. I was working with another teacher at that time, with a tenor. And this was a different kind of technique. I think that this sort of broadened my voice, brought it down a little bit, etc. I think it basically was always more of a higher voice. I've always had problems, and I still do, I have to admit it, with the lower range. Anything that's sort of below a E above middle C, F above middle C, that's where it starts to get sort of weak. And going down, it's definitely weak. I mean, it's there, but it's improved incredibly. I thought I'd never have these notes. I remember a few years ago when I was studying with Alberta Masiello Moscow. Do you know her? Maybe
Yes.
you know her. I studied with her a few years ago in some of her classes that she had. And I remember singing back then the third act of Mimi. And I remember her sitting at the piano and saying, "My dear, if you want to see Mimi, you will have to improve on your low notes," So back then I realized, this is maybe not the repertoire for me, maybe I'm really not a lyric.
And yet Sieglinde lies all around G, A in the middle, doesn't it?
It lies low, and it even has, what we call Spitzen, low notes, down to these Bs and things below middle C. But that's all very parlando, and the orchestra is actually very light in these sections, opposed to what a lot of people think about Wagner orchestration. In these sections, when Sieglinde is low, or middle low range, actually the orchestration is very light. So all you really have to do is speak the words, and it's enough. There's also time to ease down into the low voice, which is good. If I have to go suddenly down to low voice, that's when I have problems. But if I have time to ease down and to get a good mixture, then I can deal with it.
Do you use chest voice?
I do, in certain circumstances. Yes, I do. And I enjoy using it.
Because of the physical sensations, or?
It's a very erotic feeling. Yes, I enjoy it.
What's your loudest note?
I would say... loud. You mean decibel, as far as decibels? Yes. Well, it would either be my C sharp, or D, high C. My voice does get larger as it goes up. When I get to a high E flat, then it starts to reduce a little bit. Only if I'm on a really good night, then I have a big E flat or a big E. But basically, the loudest notes would be C sharp, D, something like this.
That makes you all but unique among women. If one looks at the meters of a tape recorder as women sing, if one is recording live, one almost invariably sees that notes from B flat or even A on up, A above the staff, B flat above the staff, attenuate, usually rather quickly in volume. Most women's voices peak around G sharp, perhaps A natural above the staff, and then get weaker in terms of decibels.
But have you noticed this with just the singers of, let's say, the last 10 years, 15 years, or has it been more through history?
I think even if one tapes old records, one notices that to a certain extent. However, making judgments becomes problematical because singers on the old singers were taught to turn away from the mic or to back away from the mic on high notes, so that
we still are.
Really, I've never witnessed. Well, I shouldn't say
I've
never,
been asked very often to rock back on one foot when I get up to a high note in front of the microphone. Yes.
What is your most beautiful note?
Oh, maybe D.
High D.
Not a high D, a D.
In the middle, upper middle.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. This is a nice note. This is a yes. I can color this note well.
And your preferred tessitura?
Around F. For example, the kind of tessitura E to F, such as non mi dir, this is a very good tessitura for me. Just a hair above the passaggio. This is wonderful.
So in other words, you've got a passaggio up there.
Yes, yes.
Are you preoccupied with the passaggio in the manner of many tenors?
No, I'd say the only thing that I do concern myself with is that if I'm a little bit lazy one day, a little bit tired or whatever, I have to be careful that, for example, my D flat does not get a little bit flat, to keep it just a little bit up, to really keep the support in the passage, where the break is. And this I've only noticed really on days when I've been a little bit slump.
Where's the break in your voice?
It's between D flat and D.
So the moment you're out of that,
then it soars.
Yeah. Do you end up covering, as so many singers do, in the area of the passaggio?
Not consciously, no. No, as a matter of fact, I try to color my voice as you'd say. I try to color it as less as possible, unless there's a reason, unless there's an expressive reason to color it. I try to keep a natural vowel sound throughout the voice. And so this means I try to avoid covering all through the voice. And I think this is very important, because I think this ends up, I think a lot of vowels from many singers are distorted by covering.
What is your heaviest part?
My heaviest would, most dramatic, do you mean in this sense, or that's different? Most dramatic?
Perhaps so, yes.
Oh, it's difficult to say if that might be Chrysothemis in Elektra or it might be Sieglinde. That's difficult. The thing is about Sieglinde, she's actually, she has a lot of piano. She's a low part, but there's a lot of piano written in it because there's a lot of parlando, especially in the first act, even in the second act, though. Chrysothemis is a real, what I call a screamer. You know, she really, I dislike this character, and that's why I don't sing her anymore. Not because I can't sing it vocally, but I just dislike the character. It's very one-sided, and she comes in and she's frustrated and she screams and goes out and comes back and screams again, and it could maybe be a nice part, but it's not.
What of the tessitura?
The tessitura is a little bit difficult, and I'll explain why. Because it doesn't... because it all of the action happens very quickly. It doesn't really give time to soar up into the high notes. The high notes are there, which is good. I'm glad they are, but sometimes it's a little bit too hectic, and this is why the screaming then comes. And I think it's vocally not really a very well written role, as opposed to other Strauss roles. I think some other Strauss roles are ideal. For example, the Empress in the Frauenschatten, or Daphne, which you probably don't know.
Yes,
this is a wonderful.
Yes, it was
do you know
at Carnegie Hall around 1984.
Great piece.
You're listening to WKCR-FM New York. I'm Stefan Zucker. CHERYL Studer, what is your lightest part?
My lightest? Oh, that's very difficult, the lightest one. I haven't sung Pamina for a while. I don't really have at this moment any very light roles. I would sing maybe a lighter role if someone would give one to me. But, well, Sonambula I could say, but I also don't sing that on the stage. I think the lightest one I've sung on the stage would be maybe Pamina. That one I'd have to think about. Maybe, no, Agata isn't even light, though. Agata also has some heavier stuff.
What makes a role difficult?
It depends on the complete circumstances, you know. If I was just in my studio, for example, and I was trying to decide which role is more difficult, I would give you a different answer than if I'm doing these roles on the stage with different conductors, in different houses, in different acoustic, with different directors, etc. Something that makes a role difficult, as I said before, is if the role is too hectic. I don't like hectic roles. I can accomplish something with dramatic roles, but if they're too hectic, then they get to be ugly. I like roles that have a little bit of femininity in them. I think that's nice to be able to color things a lot. I like roles that have I like romantic roles. This is something I'm discovering with the time. For example, such as Lucia, a role which you can really do a lot of coloring, a lot of phrasing. You know, every phrase is really just, you know, it's wonderful. It's like putty to form it in the voice. This I have a lot of fun with.
Is Isolde difficult?
Isolde is not difficult if you can sing Isolde. Isolde takes, more than anything else, a lot of stamina. And this takes time. Anyone that sings Isolde before the 30 must just be crazy. I would not recommend it to anyone. Parts of it, I think one can really look at an early age, learn parts of it, try to develop some kind of concept with the years, so that by the time one is 40, 45, one has an idea of how one would do an Isolde. But I think to tackle this kind of a role too early is really a mistake. But as I said, if you have the voice for it, it's not a dangerous role.
What about the Queen of the Night?
The Queen of the Night is a role which consists really of only 2 spectacular arias and nothing else. And for me, because of that, it's a very uninteresting role. And this is also the reason why I've only done it in concert and on a recording, and I probably will never do it on the stage. I had an offer to do it on the stage And to be very honest, first of all, I don't think I could manage doing much while I'm singing this role, because it is technically it's difficult. I have to concentrate. I don't think I could be running around. And to be very honest, and second, it doesn't interest me as a role. There's absolutely no development in the role. And I really like to portray a character. For example, a Violetta is ideal. I mean, that's a real development from the beginning to the end.
We'll be talking about Violetta presently. You'll be recording it, I believe,
Yes.
with
Yes.
Levine. Yeah.
Right.
And who the tenor be?
With Luciano.
Have impresarios resisted your effort to reorient your career?
Oh, yes. Especially in the smaller houses. Here we're going back to the province again, where I've always had problems. I still have my offers for people who seem to have my offers from people who seem to think that it's not really working out with bel canto, and they say, "Oh well, Studer will be coming back soon enough. We'll keep on offering Salome, and we'll keep on offering Senta and things like this." And the Sieglinde, oh my God, how many Sieglindes? Everyone wants Sieglinde, and I just keep saying no, and I have enough work to do, so that's all right.
Has saying no caused problems of any kind?
It has caused some problems, especially at the beginning. It did cause problems at the beginning. There are some conductors, there's one particular conductor and one particular director with whom I haven't worked with anymore, because they just are absolutely insulted because I did not have their opinion about myself. And it can be dangerous, but at this point, I have so many people who appreciate what I do. And for example, Muti is someone who's really fighting against everyone else from the very beginning. He said, when he heard me at the Verdi Requiem, he said, "You are a Verdi voice, and whether I am or not," this was his opinion. And so a lot of people started thinking, "Oh, well, maybe she's not only a Wagner voice."
What about in Hamburg?
Yes. Well, actually, I'll have to tell you a little story. I sang for a conductor when I was still in Darmstadt, and I sang because he wanted to do a piece in Hamburg, Alcina from Handel, which is fantastic. I still would love to do the piece. And I auditioned very well, so there's no excuse. And after the audition, he said, I'll tell you something. I'll give you an example. If you were going to sing a role in Don Giovanni, I would hire you neither as Donna Anna nor as Donna Elvira, but at the most as a Zerlina. So you are not an Alcina. So I believe it was 3 years after this audition. Obviously, I didn't get the job. And actually, this project did not take place. And a few years after this, the house which he went to, which is Hamburg, I can say it, you already said it, called me up and asked if I would like to do Tannhäuser with this conductor, Elizabeth. And wait a minute, 3 years ago, I was not even at Zerlina, and all of a sudden, I'm an Elizabeth in Tannhäuser, And I turned, of course, this offer down. And then since then, an offer came, I believe it was as Juliet, or was it Capuletti Montecchi, right?
Really?
And that I unfortunately had to turn down because of my calendar. But this conductor did, sort of change his mind and thought, well, if she's going to stick to her guns, well, let her.
May I ask his name?
Albrecht, Gerd Albrecht.
I understand that these days, although you made your reputation as a Wagnerian, you will sing Wagner only in Bayreuth.
Actually, I won't be singing next year. I would have sung next year. I told Wolfgang Wagner I don't have time to do the rehearsal period, and since I'm not singing, I would have done Elsa and Lohengrin again. Since I'm not singing the role this season at all, I really would desperately have needed at least a couple of rehearsals to do it justice in the summer. So I said, there's no point in it. I could have only done 2 performances anyway. I don't have time for the rehearsals. Let's drop 1 year. So I've had 6 years straight through in Bayreuth, 6 summers. So I'll be gone next summer. I won't be there. The summer after that, I'm still contemplating if I can mix it with Pesaro, because I'm doing Madame Cortese in Viaggio Oran with Abbado. And I'm still contemplating if I can do Tannhäuser, mix that or not. I don't think I can, so I think I should say no, but I haven't said no yet. I will have to make up my mind at the end of November.
How did you get hired by Bayreuth to begin with?
I sang 1983. I sang in a fairly unknown piece from Wagner. Maybe you know it because you know everything, Rienzi. And I sang the role of Irene. And this was a very important point in my career because that was my first sort of international acclaim. It was a very successful evening. And after this, I'd gotten a call to audition for Wolfgang Wagner, and apparently either Frau Wagner was there or someone else was there from the house and had heard me and suggested Wolfgang Wagner should hear me. So I auditioned for him in Berlin. He was there. I happened to be there. I auditioned there. And he engaged me to do Freya and to do one of the Walküres. Actually, I should go back. Initially, they asked me if I would do Venus in Tannhäuser. And I said, well, no, I'm sorry. Even in a place like Bayreuth, where the acoustic is phenomenal, the role's too dramatic. So then they offered me these two roles. I accepted them. So I was to be, in 1985, the festival, I was to be there anyway, singing two smaller roles. And it was, I believe it was the 26th of June in 85. I got a call on the telephone. Wolfgang Wagner, hello, Frau Studer. Do you know the role of Elisabeth in Tannhäuser? I said, what is Tannhäuser? So I obviously did not only know the role, I did not know the opera. I didn't even know one tune, which no one believes, but it's true. And he says, well, would you be willing to audition for us because our Elizabeth is sick? And I said, well, how big is the role? And he says, well, you know, I said, well, let me look at it, and then I'll let you know, because I didn't know how much time I had to learn. I didn't know how big the role was. I looked at it, I saw, well, I'm not even in the first act, so that's a good sign. The second act is the full act, but then the third act, it's only the first few minutes. So I thought, well, I can learn it quickly. Little did I know I had to learn it really in a very short time. So I sang Traviata in Hanover that night, and the next day I flew to Bayreuth, which I was supposed to anyway, and I auditioned at the festival house. And when I arrived there, one of the women from the administration came up and said, yeah, Frau Studer, we're so glad you're here. What are you going to sing for us? And I said, well, I thought I would sing one of the arias from the Bard of Bride. And Michael, what? You don't have a Wagner? I said, well, I don't sing any Wagner. And Irene, you know, this role from Rienzi doesn't have an aria. So I didn't have anything prepared. What am I supposed to sing? She said, well, you'll have to sing something. Don't you know anything? I said, well, no, I don't know anything. So she said, well, I said, well, let me look at Tannhäuser. So bring me the score. So I looked, this is really a true story. So she brought me the score. This is 20 minutes before I had to audition. She brought me the score. She says, well, this is the aria and that's the aria. I said, well, that one looks difficult. The first one looks easy. So let's learn that. So I learned that in 20 minutes. I took the score on the stage with me. I think it was the set of Götterdämmerung or something. Anyway, I was standing on the stage and I had a music stand, and I put this music on it. And I said, well, I'm going to be singing the Hallen aria from Tannhäuser. So I sang that. And then I walked off the stage. There was no signal. And then Wolfgang Wagner came to me and he says, you know, be careful, try in this house, don't push. You know, this is a great acoustic, don't push, don't try to prove that you're a Wagner singer. Just sing the way you normally would sing and try to relax. You're really wonderful. And, you know, just really gave me a pep talk. So I went back on the stage again. I sang it again. And then they said, well, from the audience, they said, well, Miss Studer, do you have anything memorized? I said, well, of course I have a lot of things memorized. I brought, for example, the Bard of Bride with me and Michaela's aria from Carmen. And they said, well, what would you like to sing? I said, well, I'd prefer to sing Michaela. So here I am on the Bayreuth stage singing the Michaela aria, and the choristers were going by, and they tell me to this day, they tell me it was just hysterical because no one has ever sung Michaela on the stage in Bayreuth. Anyway, so I sang this, and then I went to Mr. Wagner's office afterwards. He says, you did just fine. Maestro Sinopoli will be coming just a minute, and we'll have a talk with you. So we all sat down, a little group, in Mr. Wagner's office, and they said, well, you know, our Elizabeth has gotten sick. That was Gabriela Benachkova. And would you be willing to learn the role in this short amount of time? And I said, well, yes, and I think I can. You know, I knew I am a very fast learner, so I knew I could learn it. And I honestly, at that moment, didn't really know what I was getting into. I wasn't really thinking about this being the Bayreuth Festival, this being the grandson that I'm just sitting next to me, the grandson of Richard Wagner, the opening of the festival, my debut there, and the opening. I mean, you know, I didn't think about these things. So that evening, we started working on the piece. By the time we were done, it was about 8 o'clock at night. We began rehearsing at about 10 o'clock, and we rehearsed until 1 o'clock in the morning. And the next morning at 9 o'clock in the morning, I did with orchestra the Gebet, which is the third act, the prayer. And within 3 days, I had learned the role and had it memorized and everything. And I was already doing staging, and I was thrown in.
How quickly do you in general learn roles, including Florida roles?
I learn actually very quickly. The only thing that I take a lot of time with is with trying to pick out what kind of cadences I want to do, what kind of fioritura I want to use. I take a lot of time doing this because I want it to make sense and not just to be something florid for the sake of being florid, So I take a lot of time doing this. But basically, a normal role, let's say a Mozart role or something, I learn really within 5 days.
I suspect that, unlike me, you do not have to take fioritura at a slow tempo, working with the metronome and slowly increasing the metronome, that you're able to jump in and sing it accurately.
You're assuming too much. No, what I do is I don't only slow them down, but I try to do... let's say I don't have difficulty with every passage, but there are certain passages I have difficulty with. And the ones I have difficulty with, I take them apart and I change the phrasing in them. For example, I'll phrase 2, 2, 2, then I'll phrase 3, 3, 3, then I'll phrase 4, 4, 4, then I'll do it staccato, then I'll do it legato. And different combinations of the articulation of the notes, and that cleans them up for me.
Does an example come to mind?
For example, just thinking of it now. For example, Donna Anna. I'll do these 16th notes in the second aria. I will do them. They aren't fast fiorituras, but I mean they are notes that have to be agile. So I will do them in different kinds of articulation, as I said, and I will take them. I will do them staccato. I'll do them in faster tempo and slower tempo, so that really I've done them almost in any time. I've done them extremely fast. With Abbado, they were very fast. And with Levine, I think I found a wonderful tempo, so I'm really, really happy about that. I think I didn't sing it the best yet, but I will be singing, I think, my best Donna Annas here.
For anybody else, the tempo would have been too broad, necessitating extra breaths, but it seemed to give you no trouble at all.
I think this is a positive. One of the things I think that's positive about myself is that I do have a good breath capacity. For example, the beginning part of the Non mi dire in Vienna in the spring we did with Abbado, we did very, very slow, and I carried over one of the phrases all the way from the beginning to the end. And it was rather nice, but of course it was in a smaller acoustic. And I really did a lot of work on that. I worked a lot to be able to do this phrase, and no one noticed. So, what good did it do me?
What do you mean by 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3?
Well, like like two, like doing two, connecting 2 notes, connecting 3 notes, connecting them 4 notes, and doing then doing staccato, and then staccato, legato, different groupings of the notes and of the articulation of the notes.
Have you renounced performing Wagner elsewhere than at Bayreuth?
I won't be singing anything within the next few years outside of Bayreuth. No.
In Wagner, well, how come?
First of all, should I be very honest?
You expect me to say no?
I don't think that a lot of the other houses deserve it, to be very honest. I don't think they deserve having me ruin myself for their houses, for what they've done for me, Wolfgang Wagner has done more for me than anyone else, and I would consider losing my voice for Wolfgang Wagner. So I think that's one of the basic points.
Why do you think that singing Wagner might cost you your voice?
I have a voice which basically lies higher than a normal lyric voice even. Let's say someone such as Vreni, which is a lyric. My voice lies about a minor third higher than that. So that's why a role, for example, such as Mimi is not a great role for myself. I mean, I could sing it, but it's not what my natural voice should be singing. A role such as Donna Anna, which lies higher, is better for me. She sings Susanna, which is a much lower range, although she's a lyric. So, this terminology is a little bit difficult, because when you say a lyric, everyone thinks, a lighter voice. Well, I think of a lower voice when I refer to a lyric soprano. I think of a lower voice in comparison to a dramatic. A dramatic or even a spinto has a much higher voice than a lyric soprano. A lyric soprano sings Zerlina, for example, and Susanna, as I said, people who have to have very big middle voices, and the top, they don't need to have Cs. So this is something which I definitely had, as I said. I always have my C, I always have my Ds, And I think I should use them. And I think it's really detrimental to my voice. And I think it doesn't do anyone any good, neither myself nor the audience, if I don't use these notes that I have. Other people don't have them and they're using them, you know. So I think when I have them, I should use them and should stop trying to broaden up my middle voice, which will grow with time, I assume.
In Wagner, as everyone knows, much of the interest lies in the orchestra, not the voice. I think Wagner's singing less rewarding because there's less opportunity for rubato and shading.
This is true to a certain extent. I'm not saying that the music is less appreciable, because I think the music is wonderful, but it's true, a singer cannot predominate the music as much in Wagner as the singer can, for example, in Donizetti or in Bellini or in any of the bel cantos, even in Verdi, you know. For me, I've found this out, that whenever I'm doing a Wagner role, I really yearn to do, after a few months, I yearn to do something else. For example, I yearn to do even a Mozart, or I really yearn to do some Bellini. But when I'm doing, for example, when I was doing Semiramide, which I love doing, at the same time I was really looking forward to the next Elsas. So I really enjoy this idea of being flexible. I really, really enjoy it.
What do you think is your best role?
That's difficult. I did a lot of thought about this, and I really, it really depends on the situation. It depends on the conductor. It depends so much on the kind of acoustic. One of my favorite roles is definitely Daphne from Richard Strauss. I love this opera. I love the music, and I love the role itself. The vocal line of the role is just wonderful. But if it's my best role, I can't say if it's my best role. Actually, everyone else should tell me what my best role is, because I really don't know.
In what role does the public like you best?
Well, the public in Germany likes me best in Wagner things. But the public, and Strauss even, and Faust in Munich, that's right. Faust in Munich was a very big success. But in Vienna, for example, they like me in Mozart. You know, and my biggest success, for example, in Italy up to this date was a bel canto concert, which you are not aware of. I'll have to give you this critique sometime. It was a bel canto concert. Actually, it wasn't bel canto. It was a concert. I sang bel canto, and it was with me, and it was with Chris Merritt, and it was supposed to be with Zancanaro, who canceled at the last moment. He stayed in Verona, and Pata Borcolazzi. And I sang Lucia, the first aria, the Regnava nel Silenzio, and the Semiramide, and Sonambula, yes. And I got the best critiques and the most applause of anything in my whole life, actually. In spite of that, I have not been asked to come back to the Scala in a bel canto role. But, that's the problem of the direction and not my problem. But, the audiences like me in different things in different countries.
When Callas and Bing had their rift, she claimed that he wanted her to perform Lady Macbeth and Violetta without to prepare vocally for Macbeth, and 10 days to shift back to Traviata. What is involved in shifting between light and heavy parts?
That sounds very sensible, actually. I was never aware of the timing exactly, but that's almost exactly what I always say. If I go, for example, I don't sing Lady Macbeth, but let's say I would sing Lady Macbeth. If I would go from Lucia to Lady Macbeth, I would need maybe only 5 days. But to go from Lady Macbeth to Lucia, I would need twice as much time. To do fine music, to do these more fine lines that, for example, in Lucia, like soffriva nel pianto, these kind of things, or even Diti alla giovine in Traviata. These lines that are very fine, this filo di voce, you can't do if your voice is been boosting out. You just can't reduce to this kind of line. And so to do these roles justice, the voice has to be in really good, healthy, schlank, kind of.
Schlank sagt slender?
Yeah. Yes, right. In this kind of condition, and not a boosting kind. I'm not saying you have to boost your voice or you have to belt a Lady Macbeth, but you have to do a little bit, you have to drive the voice a little bit more. It takes also a different kind of support. For example, if I do a role which is a little bit more dramatic, afterwards my body, my whole neck and back area, and the side of my what am I pointing to here? The side of my waist down here is much more tired than if I do Lucia. After I do a Lucia, for example, or a Semiramide, I'm tired, but I don't have this kind of muscle because I'm not using my entire bodily muscles as much.
I'm Stefan Zucker. Right now I'm speaking with CHERYL Studer. A little later, Ewald Schwarz will also speak. He is her companion. CHERYL Studer, how did you come to make your first record?
Oh, this is actually my very first record was in 1981, and no one knows about this recording probably. Well, maybe some of you will, but it's so unimportant. It was one of the Walküres in the Ring which Janowski conducted on the Ariola label. Do you call it Ariola in the States? Yes. And I did actually a role that I had not done on the stage. I sang Ortlinde. On the stage I'd sung Helmwege. And so I had to learn. It's very similar. The Walküres are pretty much the same. But this was my first recording. My first important recording. This is something else. The first important recording was when I jumped in for the Verdi Requiem with Muti. And this is a wonderful story. This was in June 87, I believe. And I had auditioned for Muti that same year, and he was very excited. And he asked me at that time, I'm not going to tell you what I auditioned for at that time because you won't believe it. Anyway, I auditioned for something else, and he said to me,
"Oh, tell us."
No. Should I say? I auditioned for Senta. Because, of course, he had heard that I had a great success at the Bayreuth Festival, and he wanted me to sing Senta. Well, I got there, and I saw this house at the Scala, and I auditioned, and I thought, well, no, I'm sorry, but this is not the place for me to do Senta. So I said, Maestro, I'm sorry, but I just don't think this is right for me. He says, well, all right, as long as you promise not to do it with anyone else, then I'll accept you turning it down. And I haven't done it with anyone else. Anyway, at the same time, he asked me, well, do you sing Verdi Requiem? And I said, well, of course I sing Verdi. I've always sung Verdi Requiem. And he says, well, how is your high B flat? I said, well, my B flat is fine. It's the low C's that are bad. And he says, well, who cares about the low C's? Don't worry. I want you to do Verdi Requiem with him. So we were planning on doing a Verdi Requiem. And then all of a sudden, I shouldn't say all of a sudden, it turned out that nothing really came of this Verdi Requiem. And I heard someone else was going to be doing a Verdi Requiem because it was also combined with the recording. And this person was Margaret Price. A quote, wonderful, a great singer. So I wasn't upset. And then I heard there were some problems. And then they called me.
What sorts of problems?
Well, I just heard that there was some problem. She was sick apparently, and there were some, problems. They were afraid that it wasn't going to be able to happen or whatever. And also with the recording problems, that was it, because it was supposed to be in a church, and they turned it into the Scala instead because the acoustic was apparently so bad in this church you couldn't hear. I mean, it was just so loud and so resounding you couldn't really make sense of anything. And so they took it back to the Scala, and so they were having these kind of technical problems on top of everything else, and she was getting sick. They called me the day of the first performance at 11 o'clock in the morning. Cesare Mazzonis on the telephone said, Margaret Price is sick. Just in case she's still sick in the evening, would you be willing to jump in? And I was sort of in vacation at that time. I hadn't sung for about 2 weeks, so I wasn't really in good shape. And I said, well, okay, that's fine. They said, well, we'll fly you down, and you'll cover the evening. Oh, great. Okay, so I flew down. I arrived at 4 o'clock. I went into the Scala, and within the first 5 minutes that I was in the Scala, I was rushed around into Maestro Muti's room, and they said, well, you sing through this one. So I said, well, I haven't sung or anything. So I hadn't sung for weeks. I hadn't warmed up. I ran quickly into the ladies' room, and I sang a few scales, which I always end up singing, warming up in the ladies' room. And I came back out, and I sang through the entire Verdi Requiem, and Maestro Muti kept looking back at the producer and saying, nodding sort of, she's not bad, is she? She's okay. You think she can do this? This kind of a expression. And, okay, everything's fine. All right, well, we'll let you know. So I went to the hotel room, terrible hotel room. Couldn't sleep a wink. And we decided, well, we'll just take a little nap and get ready then for the evening. We'll get tickets and go to the show. So I went to the Scala then in the evening, went upstairs. And I brought my gown with me just in case. I thought, well, I'll bring it just in case. So I had my gown with me, went upstairs to warm up, and Ewald went to where the tickets are, to pick up our tickets. And during the time that I was upstairs and I thought, well, I'll warm up a little bit, it was 7:15 in the evening. Wasn't it 7:15? The artistic director, Cesare Mazzonis, came to me in the room and says, Cheryl, you're going to have to jump in tonight. I said, oh, okay. And apparently, Ewald tells the story then after this. Apparently, he was down getting the tickets because he wanted to see the show. Apparently, when he was standing there, they put they put a stripe across the poster at the top. It said, because of the indisposition of Margaret Price, Cheryl Studer will be singing the soprano role. And his jaw, of course, dropped. Anyway, so I quickly then got myself together. I put on a little bit of makeup in my hair, and I looked just like a mess, and walked downstairs. And before going onto the stage, I met the other colleagues. Pavarotti was sort of looking at me, staring, well, who are you? What do you want here? And we went out without a rehearsal, and we did the Verdi Requiem, which was recorded live for EMI, without a rehearsal or without anything. So, under these kind of crazy circumstances, I've very often jumped in, though, at the last minute. And, it's brought me far, actually. But I've fortunately, for the most part, had a success at these kind of jumping ins. I mean, I've taken a lot of risk. If they hadn't turned out well, then I don't know what might have happened.
Is your relatively early international success attributable in part to your endurance and your ability to jump in?
It certainly is. I mean, we have to look way back. One of the important factors was that I began in a house such as Munich, which is really a big theater. And in the second season, the first season, I really only sang sort of small roles, the First Lady in the Magic Flute, and some of the Wagner compromario things, this kind of stuff. In the second season, I sang at least 3 major roles, 2 premieres of major roles, and one of them was The Barded Bride. This is something unusual for someone who's just sort of beginning. I mean, I was already doing larger things. This was definitely one of the reasons why people noticed me, because at that time, even they were really convinced that I could do larger roles, the people in Munich, Then beyond that, I was able to jump in successfully in a number of situations. For example, I've jumped in for Caballé, I've jumped in for Arroyo, I've jumped in for Margaret Price, as I said, and then also for Bonachkova. And all of these have been successful, and this really, I think, helped my career along.
What about overdubbing? Many records today are made with singers, as it were, singing to canned accompaniment to the orchestra, which has already been recorded. The singer listens to the orchestra on headphones and sings into a microphone, much in the manner of pop music recording. What do you make of this practice, and have you experienced it?
I have to be very honest. I don't think it's a good practice. I don't think it's something that we should get too used to, because I think it's not a very artistic way of going about things. I have to then also, on the other hand, say that I think it's better to do this than, for example, if someone gets sick at the last minute, just to ditch the whole project, to lose millions of dollars. They put a lot of money into the they invest a lot of money in the orchestra and the chorus and the other soloists, etc., and the technique, the rooms, all of these things have been rented, and they have tremendous loss of money. And I think it's a shame to let it come to that. So I think in this kind of a circumstance, but really only in this extreme kind of circumstance, should it come to dubbing. And I think the best way of dubbing is if the singer is unable to sing. The singer should sit next to the conductor, or should be somewhere close to the conductor, should give the indication of the kind of rubati, the time the singer needs for the kind of breath, and this could be then recorded, and later the singer could record on this. It's not ideal, but I think this would be the best way to solve this situation. But just to sort of let the conductor just sort of conduct it, something, his own tempo, his own kind of way of phrasing, I think is just very unartistic.
And yet that is done.
I believe it's done. I'm not aware of any circumstances myself, but I'm told that it's done.
In cases in which Domingo has done that.
It might be. It might. I've heard of some other. What was that? I don't even remember what it was. There was something. I know what it was. It was some Russian thing. But this, I don't think it's a good practice. I really don't.
You were recording for several companies. When I was under contract to RCA Records as a singer, they claimed they would go all out to publicize only those artists with exclusive contracts. Do you think exclusive contracts are a bad idea?
I think that they are becoming right now, so the last 1 or 2 years, I think they're getting to be in again. For a while they were really out. Domingo was not with a company, or it used to be Decca or London, I believe we called it here, was Del Monaco, Tebaldi, EMI was Di Stefano and Callas, and since that time they sort of stopped. The company stopped doing exclusive contracts. I myself have just signed an exclusive contract for lead with Deutsche Grammophon, which I'm very excited about. Basically because I really want to do more leader, and because I had offered this to some other companies and they did not bite on it. So I'm very glad that Deutsche Grammophon's doing it. But they keep telling me, the companies keep telling me that for opera singers nowadays, they can't give the singers enough. There being so many recordings are being made, but each company can't really do justice to their singer, or they can't do justice to too many exclusive singers. So the praxis has sort of gone out of being. I think it's coming back.
Ewald Schwarz, you've brought a number of CDs and tapes. What is it that we should play first?
I want to play first La Sonnambula from CHERYL's first solo recording with EMI. The recording is named Coloratura Arias, CHERYL Studer. Gabriele Ferro is conducting.
And that is on the CD here?
On the CD, yeah.
player. Yes. So, you're listening to WKCR-FM New York, 89.9 on the dial. I'm Stefan Zucker. My guests are CHERYL Studer and Ewald Schwarz. The number here, 212-854-5223. That's 854-5223.
Oh,
One second, let me get somebody on hold and I'll speak with you listeners, please. Please hold. Oh, good. No. We just heard Anon Credea and Anon Junge from CHERYL Studer's new album, Coloratura Arias, and there was time to squeeze in a number of listener calls. Firstly, Bert Wexler, critic for the New York Daily News, phoned to say that my review of the opening night Don Giovanni will appear in Monday's paper and will say that CHERYL Studer triumphed as Donna Anna. Unfortunately, the news gave me very little space, so I didn't have the opportunity to expand much on that, but that is my view of her. However, I tore into Jerry Hadley and June Anderson for their Rigoletto. That piece appeared in Friday's paper. I hope it hasn't made your listeners unhappy. Jonathan Brown phoned. Was CHERYL Studer scheduled for Peter Sellers' Tannhäuser in Chicago with William Johns? And if so, CHERYL Studer, did you cancel because of Sellers' radical interpretation?
Actually, no. Actually, I canceled because at that time I made my definite decision to not sing this role, or to not sing this role periodically, and to try not to sing this role outside of Bayreuth, especially, however, not in a place with acoustic like a football stadium such as Chicago. At the same time, I heard after I had canceled that he was directing the piece, and I was glad that I had turned it down.
I loathe Peter Sellers. I've discussed this. I'm going to publish an article in the forthcoming issue of Opera Fanatic magazine titled Peter Sellers Causing Harm. I would welcome hearing your views about him.
I haven't seen anything that Peter Sellers has done. I've only seen pictures and been able to read reviews, and basically he's having a very successful career around the world as a director. So I've read, for the most part, good reviews, but from the kinds of reviews I've been reading and from the pictures and from some of the interviews I've read of his, I've been able to build a kind of opinion about his way of directing, and he's not someone that I want to work with. I will try to avoid him.
I applaud your decision. I feel badly that I didn't boo him. I had press tickets and I didn't boo him. It was at the finale of Così fan tutte, and he had Despina revive the two Albanians by affixing electrodes to the genitals. And first the electrodes woke up the genitals, which gyrated, and then they woke up the Albanians. Well, it was a cheap victory that Sellers had. The audience went berserk. You didn't hear a note of the music. And it was that he swamped the music in laughter at a moment like that, with this bit of business, that he destroyed the opera to get this effect that I choked on. If he wants to affix electrodes to genitals, fine, so far as I'm concerned, but let it not be at the expense of music. Now, Alan Klein of Brooklyn phoned to say, tonight is an interesting show. However, I own and have listened to the Coloratura Arias album, and my friends have listened to it, and we note that some of the high notes are flat, particularly in the Barbiere aria, and wonder what the conditions were under which the album was recorded, and whether, CHERYL Studer, you had an opportunity to choose the takes that were used for the record.
Yes, well, I'd just like to say a couple of things. From doing this first solo recording, I learned a tremendous amount, It is certainly not, in my opinion, the last word on my artistry or the last word on performing these arias. I'm sure I will do at least a certain portion of them again, and I'm doing quite a lot of them, as a matter of fact, on, for example, complete operatic recordings and things. To get this album from the very beginning was another story. In fact, I had to take on another role to convince the people that I also should deserve having a solo album put out on the market. And so I also went through a deal to get this aria album in the first place. In addition to that, the aria album was recorded, all of these arias, in a 4-day session. I saw the conductor the evening before the first session, so we went through the first 2 arias the day before the first session. On the day of the first session, we went through the 2 arias after the session, the 2 arias for the next day, and it went on this way. So I was singing around 5 hours each day, and by the end of the session at the end of these recording sessions, was very tired. On top of that, I had a foot injury, which maybe you might have heard about. I had to also cancel some performances. It happened at the Scala. And I didn't sprain my ankle, but how do we call this? I pulled some tendons, so I should have been in a cast. They didn't put me in a cast. It's a long story. I was standing on one foot during this recording and very imbalanced. I'm not making excuses for myself. I'm very happy with some of the things on the recording, but as I said, it's not my best, and I'm definitely in agreement with this gentleman that called up and said that he was most unhappy with the Barbier. This is the thing I'm the most unhappy about. Unfortunately, it was also recorded in a way, I think it was only 2-track, they call it, which means that I couldn't, for example, I just assumed, when I have a couple of bad notes, I'll be able to come back in a few months when they've already spliced it together and put a couple of high notes, pop them in then. This was not the case. So I only recorded this one E natural at the end of the Barbier, and this is the one they took, so I had no choice. In spite of that, I'm glad to have something out on the market, because I hear these 20-year-olds, out on the market that have just not even sung anywhere, and they have their portraits, and I'm glad to have something out there. And as I said, there are some moments that I'm very happy with.
Record companies, the big ones with high overheads, resist making aria albums because they lose money. In the end, they will consent to do so as inducements to bring artists to record things the artist might not be that interested in recording, or to make sure that they get exclusivity. Aria albums are usually used as quid pro quos by the record companies. The record companies spend as little money as they can on them, believing that probably they won't recover their investments.
Can I just make one exception? There is one thing that I'm very happy about, and that is because I do have this more extensive contract coming up with Deutsche Grammophon. I have told them that I will not make the mistake that I did with this first album. I will require, at least for a 60-minute CD, I will require 5 days recording with 1 day during this time free, and I will see the conductor 2 days before the recording period so that I have 1 day free before we start on the recording. So I'm in a good vocal shape, rested, and can present myself in a good light. And they've promised me they will do this.
What did Angel EMI extract from you in return for recording this album?
Actually, it was the Chrysotomies in Elektra, and I had this offered to me from 2 other companies, and I turned it down for the 2 other companies in order to do it for EMI.
Now, I don't know how you can sing this repertory for that many hours, for that many days, back to back. I myself require lots of rest when I do acrobatic repertory. It's terribly easy to sing oneself out, and the history of opera is full of such cases. The world premiere of Norma was a really bad fiasco because the singers were sung out, having rehearsed too much in the days before the premiere and on the day of the performance. Pasta sang very flat, according to, among others, Bellini. And the audience came unglued and booed and abused everybody. And performance after performance has been shipwrecked because the singers were oversung. So it's amazing that at least you got some segments of the recording.
There are some moments that I'm happy with. Yes, I wanted to just mention two other things. So, I'm sure some of the listeners who maybe know this portrait are wondering why I did not do the cabaletta to the Norma, and I wanted to explain that I found out the evening before we recorded Norma on the next day, when I was rehearsing with the conductor after our sessions on that day, I found out that they didn't have the notes for the orchestra. They didn't know that I wanted to sing the cabaletta. So this is why it is not on the album, and they couldn't get the notes for the orchestra, in this short amount of time. The other thing I'd like to say is that although I'm really not thrilled about it, I am very thankful to EMI because I'm not a singer who was discovered at a very young age, and I have had to fight my way, and I'm thankful that I have something out on the market.
In other words, it's of particular importance to you to have a solo aria album, despite the fact that you are, to say the least, well represented on CDs. You have nearly 25 albums on the market, or will have by the end of the season.
Yes, I will have. Yes, they aren't out there. Yes.
Well, you've got mere something like 15 at the moment.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. Right. Yeah, well, a solo album is very important. First of all, just perchance, anything I've done up to now has also not, I've not had a title cover. For example, Die Frau ohne Schatten, although it's the title role that I sang, the Empress, I'm not on the front cover of it. So no one knows who CHERYL STUDER looks like. They may notice my name somewhere, but I'm neither on Attila nor am I on Tannhäuser or anything that I've recorded. And so for me, it was important just to also, for very, basic reason, just to get my face out there so people can associate also a face with my voice.
Well, Mimi Ciaradella of Tappan, New York, called to say CHERYL STUDER is beautiful in the picture on the cover of the July Opera News. She's also beautiful in what she says. Well, the pictures don't do CHERYL STUDER justice. She's actually a gorgeous woman. Alas, this is not TV. The pictures make her seem like a much bigger woman than she is in actuality. You mentioned you've lost quite a bit of weight.
Yes, I have. And most of these pictures were taken when I was still a little chubbier. I lost, since the beginning of the year, I've lost 40 pounds. And now I'm sustaining that, and I hope to, within the next season, lose another 5 to 10 pounds and then stop.
Has the weight loss affected your singing?
While I was losing, it did affect. While I was losing, I did do a lot of scales and things to try to keep my condition up. But in spite of that, I did have a little bit of problems, and I did have some weak performances of Donna Anna in Vienna in May because of that, May this season. In spite of that, I did have a big success in Vienna, and they were really minor things. But I felt, for example, breath control was not as it should be, and I feel like now I'm in better shape than I was before I started losing weight, however.
What's your secret? How does one lose 40 pounds that quickly?
Oh, that was not really quick. That's not really quick. That's very healthy. That's half a year. And I just completely changed my eating habits. And I also changed, to a certain extent, my living habits, with the exception of tonight, I try to go to bed earlier than I had been going to bed, and try to get more sunlight during the day, try to live a little bit more. And I have always been careful about certain things, but eating, I never really thought much about eating having to do too much with my my state of mind, and it really does have a lot to do. And I have to admit, I think that any singer who's had a certain amount of success has enough discipline to lose weight if they really want to, and I would tell them to go ahead and try it. They can always gain it back if they feel like their voice is losing grips with their voice, but I think they should try it. Any singer who's had some kind of success is disciplined enough to be able to lose weight if they want to. It just takes discipline.
Mimi Ciardella asks, are you slated to do Ballo in Maschera with Pavarotti?
No, and I don't want to do Ballo in Maschera with anyone.
How come?
Ballo in Maschera is one of these roles that it lies too low for me. It's much too low.
Anyway, Madame Ciardella quotes, I love your guest, she says. Roy Keating phoned to say, Cheryl Studer's idea in singing, to judge from this record, seems to be don't push. Nina Mazzeo phoned to say, Studer is very, very good. The singing is clear as a bell. Were the natives in Milan resentful that La Scala was bringing in a foreigner to sing Italian opera?
I don't believe that they were against the fact that I myself or Chris Merritt, that we were Americans, that we were not Italians. I can't swear to what they believe or what they think because I'm not in their minds, but I don't think this was one of the reasons why I had any kind of negative response. Other Italians have had also negative responses, for example, at the Scala, such as Freni, such as Ricciarelli. And I don't think this has anything to do with nationality, although they are, to a certain extent, nationalists. I have to also say that. But I don't think that this was really a reason why they were at all against me. And something else, which I'm sure you also read, because I gave you a little bit of material the other day,
Yes.
that I've sung altogether 26 performances at the Scala. And there were only 2 performances in which there were any kind of, negative response. In one of them, it was more of a booing kind of thing, and the other one, it was more of sort of a hissing kind of response. So actually, I basically think I've had successes at the Scala, but in the most important situations, it's been more of a mini scandal, not even a real scandal, I mean, because it really wasn't that important. If it had been the whole house, then I would say it was a scandalo, but it really wasn't. And these 2 performances, the one was Guglielmo Tell, this was the opening of the Scala, and the next season, the opening of the Scala was Vespi Siciliani.
What happened? The Vespri booing received quite a bit of attention.
Yes, this booing came after the Bolero in the 5th act. The 4th act aria, everything was fine. And after the Bolero, there was an immediate group of maybe, somewhere between 5 to 10 voices that after some bravos and applauding came very suddenly and all together, like a kind of a boo concert. And this is one reason why I have... I hate to say this, but I really think it's true. I think that it was planned. I think it was premeditated. And it was not my best evening, but I do not think that I was booed because they didn't think I was good. Let's put it this way.
Listeners may recall that when we played the Vespri booing, the booing of the Bolero, on the broadcast with Franco Corelli in May 12th, I pointed out that it seemed to that only a handful of people were doing the booing. You did not by any means get a chorus of boos. What did it feel like to be booed?
Oh, well, actually, I almost expected it in a way, to be very honest, because I'd had a bad reception in the year before for Guglielmo Tell, and the evening was getting, as the evening went along, the tension was building and building. There had been some boos after the 3rd act duet with Zancanaro and Merritt already. That's when it really started. And so I assumed I would get booed out after my 4th act aria. And it was very surprised that it didn't happen. I think Evald was also very surprised. We both thought, well, the evening now is, we won the evening. It's saved. And then all of a sudden, after the Bolero, these boos came. And that was, for me, as I said, I was sort of expecting, but at the same time, it was very much a surprise at this moment, because I thought it really was not as bad. And I was surprised that they hadn't done something all along. Why did this come at this particular moment?
How do you explain it? What triggered it?
First of all, I'd like to say I don't believe in one of the excuses that the audience is always given about this Callas phenomenon, that anyone who sings a Callas role is going to be booed out at the Scala. You know, they say this, that the Callas spirit is running around in the Scala, and anyone who sings a Callas role will not be accepted. I don't believe that.
Callas herself was booed at
Bravo.
Scala. In fact, we're going to be playing an excerpt from Barbiere on I believe the November 24th broadcast with Joost van Bergen guest, with Callas getting it. That program will be titled Booing at Bayreuth, and we'll play some examples as well, some examples of booing elsewhere. And Callas was indeed booed many times. There are many stories about it. She was booed at the Metropolitan as well. But what do you think was involved in these particular episodes?
In these, for the Vespri, it's really difficult to say. I have my own feelings about it, and I really can't swear if it's true, but I do not have an agent anymore in Europe. And the Italians, such as the Americans, are very agent-oriented, very oriented into management. Who is taking care of who is the impresario of whom? And it has very much to do with contacts and this kind of, I don't mean the word mafia in the sense of, criminal episodes, but I mean a kind of mafia as far as relationships, people with each other, who kisses whose hand. And I don't have someone who's pushing me in Italy, and I'm glad I don't. And I think this is one of the problems. I do not fit into the system, the so-called system in Italy. I think this is definitely one of the reasons why some people are against me. They may even be agents sitting out there. They may be people, agents from other singers that want to make sure that I have a poor success or something. I know it is not the Logionisti, because the Logionisti have told me we are not booing you. There's this one Logionisti, his name is Mario, and he's given me these wonderful, what do you call them, placats, these wonderful things to hang on the wall with signatures of all of the fans and all the Logionisti, and a program where De Stefano also signed it back then, and a picture of Callas and all sorts of things. They're just wonderful people, and they have guaranteed me it's not them. And I'm going back to the Scala now in June, and now that you have gotten me curious, I'm going to ask them what they think, whom they think this comes from, and I will let you know.
Well, Logionisti sit in the Logione, which is the highest, the highest
the so-called
tier.
Standing room, yes.
Yeah. The equivalent of our standees, and they feel that it is up to them to uphold standards. Seated in the chair you are in, CHERYL Studer, Franco Corelli told us that although for him, being booed was like being in hell, booing is necessary to uphold standards. Do you feel there is a place for booing?
Oh, I personally have never booed, I'd like to say. I myself was at the Vienna State Opera, for example, as I was in the standing room. I was a standee for one entire season, and I went almost every evening when I was a student in Vienna. And I learned a lot. I even learned how to get into the opera without having a ticket. I mean, I really knew my way around. And I have to tell you something.
Are you prepared at this stage to share that?
No, I'm not. And, something really unfortunate that I discovered during this year of standing as a standee, there was a student who went every evening when a certain tenor sang, and his name was Bayer. Whenever he would sing, he would go in the opera just to have the opportunity to boo this tenor. And he would go way down to the front of the stage. We'd all be upstairs. He'd go way down the front, and he would go boo, boo, when he would come out for his call. And to me, this was such an extreme case, but it's sick in a way. Why does this person go if he doesn't like the tenor? The tenor will sing anyway, so let him sing, let everyone else hear him, but don't go just to boo him. It just doesn't do any good. I think it's much more effective to be silent that hurts also much more. This is something they did to Atlantov. I did not hear this, but I was told this. When Atlantov, who was a very beloved in Vienna as a tenor, sang, I think it was in Don Carlos, yes, the Posa. He sang it. He wanted to show also that he sings baritone. He sings in Moscow, he sings baritone. And the house just did not applaud. They didn't boo, but they did not applaud. This was a way of showing him, we want you to sing only tenor roles here. So stop fooling around with this baritone stuff. And I think this is a much more effective way. And I have to say I'm a little bit of a different opinion than CHERYL, because I think a lot of times the boos come from people who really have no idea.
Were you upset when you were booed?
Not really upset. No, not really upset. I was, for example, the first time, this was by Guglielmo Tell, I was sort of amazed because it was so sudden. It was in the middle of my third act aria, and I was very surprised, very amazed. I can't say that I was upset or hurt or disturbed. I was sort of in shock, and I stood on the stage and waited until they stopped. I went on with my aria, and then at the end, I walked off very slowly. I was very much in command of the situation. And, I'm someone who, I'm very much in my character when I'm on the stage. And I realize what's going on, but it's really like a different kind of world. I don't really take it consciously in. And I think this is probably good. Afterwards, my blood boils a little bit.
Unfortunately, I don't have that tape here. It is something we've played on the show before and something we will play again. CHERYL Studer getting booed at La Scala, and perhaps we'll. Oh, you have a version of it yourself?
Yeah.
Oh,
The recording.
But is that of the booing?
No.
Oh, yeah. It would be interesting to contrast the two. At the time that we played that, I'd never heard you before. I don't listen to the latest releases on commercial records. In my own listening, I listen to old recordings and to various live things. And I'd never heard you, and my reaction to it, sitting here, was this. I'm quoting now from my remarks during the May 12th show. Never having heard CHERYL Studer before this, I'm bedazzled by her musical sensitivity, with each note weighted so as to correspond to its place in the harmonic structure. To me, it's churlish to hold minor vocal blemishes affecting this or that note against her. Rather than booing her, La Scala should have gone down on its knees. My own feeling is that the people who booed you should be, if I were king, I would sentence the people who booed you to have to listen to Canor for the rest of their lives. Now, has the booing affected your career?
In a negative sense or in a positive sense, or either. In a negative sense, it certainly hasn't, because I keep getting the offers from the Scala itself, from Muti himself, everywhere else. But even in the Scala where these boos were, I've had really so many offers. Unfortunately, I can't accept a lot of them because my calendar just is not free. But